Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Top Agent Commercial Wednesday. This is going to be a fabulous group, really discussing for those that have been that are interested in getting into commercial real estate, expanding their commercial real estate, and because things are changing so quickly, how do you stay up with the technology, information, everything else that you got to learn? It's so funny when we were in the backstage, Rich and I, if you don't know, cut our teeth at Marcus and Millichap, where many people say that's the place to learn, that's the place you become better. And he did the air quotes for us. We had it easy back then. And we just want to talk and share. Was it easier back then? Is it easier now? Is it just the same? Or do you have to think differently to get into this business in commercial real estate? One thing I do know, and I always laugh to everyone, if you look at everyone, we either have gray hair or no hair or dyed hair, right? So at this point, it is interesting to let the new and younger generation get into our business because in many trade groups, we've been tracking it. And I know Blair is an SIOR. When I first joined SIOR about 20 years ago, I remember, I think it was 52 to 54 years old. Currently in 2025, I think we're over 60, but Blair will confirm the numbers. So that means the younger generation, people that should enter our business, could enter our business, maybe not understand what our business is up to, should be available. So I encourage people to listen, to learn. Those that are on that have an interest or maybe friends. And I've had, Richie knows, one of my clients, their kids joined me, their friends joined, and he became incredibly wealthy after 15, 20 years, Ian Hollinger. So I am always very proud of Ian being part of our company back in the day, to be wildly successful because he did listen to what we told him and not try to reinvent the wheel too much. And the biggest thing is he was the first one in the office, last one in the office. And now that you look at his life, if you ever reach out to him in Southern California, wildly successful. But let's get the show started. And I'll start with Rich Enderlin. Rich, you and I cut our teeth at M&M. Do you mind just kind of sharing, your background and a little bit of your journey in commercial real estate?
Yeah, sure, Jimmy. It's amazing. It was almost 30 years ago when we did that, and the world was a very, very different place. And we both learned the Marcus and Millichap way, and I think you'll agree with me when I say that the foundation that we got from working at a Marcus and Millichap has bode us well throughout the course of our careers. My perspective is a little unique too, even to yours, in respect to the fact that you and I were in production for almost 10, 12 years, and then we both made the foolish decision to become broker owners, right? And teamed up together. And for 16 years, you and I were in the C-suite. We helped run the Sperry Corporation, and we were out of production. And then, of course, in 2020, things all changed with not only just COVID, but I became a grandpa, as you know, and I could talk for hours about that. But what I decided to do at that point in time was to step down from the C-suite and go back into production. And so there are some dramatic differences between back in the day and today. And I think the biggest difference really is technology. And technology has just gotten so much more viable and accessible. I mean, if you think back in our Marcus days, we were the only ones that really had access to something like CoStar. So investors, both institutional and mom and pop, were pretty much forced to come to a Marcus or a CB or a JLL or one of the big boys in order to get a true evaluation of their property. And that presented a lot of opportunities for us to get listings. And we had a lot of listings back then. Things obviously have changed so dramatically. Technology is very accessible. Even CoStar is much more affordable. I mean, back then, a license used to be $1,500 a month, which we're now getting for, $300, $400, $500 a month. So that has been the most dramatic change coming back also just now that you've got AI now into the picture now, which has really accelerated the technology curve. And that has changed things. And so I think your original question was the difference between then and now. We use the air quotes that it was easy for us back then. No, it wasn't easy. It was hard, but it's even harder today as a result of all of these changes that have taken place. But the same rules still apply. It's still all about getting in front of clients, call, cold call, get those meetings, create those relationships, and that's how you can find the opportunities.
Richie, thank you so much. Next, when I first started with EXP Commercial to set it up, I knew training was very important. Michael Simpson and I, we go back little bit now too. And with Michael, I said we need a training program. We didn't have any. Let's get his current training program, NCREA. And Michael, if you don't mind sharing your background, because you've done a tremendous amount, and maybe you may resonate more with the agents looking to join commercial because you actually didn't start in commercial in the very beginning.
Yeah, that's great, Jim. Thanks for having us this morning, this afternoon. Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I started off as a residential real estate agent, and I was doing about 100 deals a year. I was hitting it pretty hard in residential in Long Beach, California. And I got a referral for somebody came to me, one of my residential clients, and said, "Hey, can you help me do this commercial deal?" And so I said what pretty much everybody says is sure, and kind of fumbled my way through that deal, and I didn't know what I was doing, and nobody really wanted to help me. The commercial guys didn't want to help me because they knew I was residential, and so they were like, "No, you stay over there, do the residential, just refer it to us." But I was stubborn and wanted to learn, and really kind of fell in love with commercial real estate. And then I got into I opened up a Keller Williams franchise in Long Beach and opened up a second one and a third one, and we grew about 600 agents. And I hear you, Rich, with making the huge mistake of doing that. I know that hindsight's 2020, and it's something I feel like I had to do to get it out of my system. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here going, "Oh, what would my life have been like had I done that?" But looking back, I kind of wish I didn't. It was just too much of a headache dealing with all that stuff, as you guys all know, when you go through that. But anyway, it kind of brought me to where I am today, so I have no regrets. That's for sure. But I did do that, and then I got into commercial really hard and heavy. Was number three in California and Hawaii at Remax, and just got off to the races. And Richie's correct; it's a lot different now, isn't it? But a lot of the fundamentals are basically the same. I relocated to North Carolina in August, and I went through a little phase there. I didn't realize I was doing that. But now I look back and I know that I was doing this. I was going through this phase in my head of who is Michael, where are your priorities? And, life changed for us dramatically because we relocated to North Carolina like that and kind of, debt free, don't really have to do a whole lot. And what do you want to do becomes now more your questions, right? And so I'm telling you that because it's led me back to deals, ironically, which I never thought I would ever want to do more deals. But I'm digging the deals again, and I'm fired up like I never was before. And I've got boots on the ground again with talking to owners and trying to put deals together and things like that. And it's real exciting, but it is different. It's a little harder. It's a just different, different time, different animal. But what you said there, Richie, about the fundamentals, it's still about getting in front of people, you guys. And remember, when a market is soft or changing of any kind, it opens the doors for us. Let's face it, before COVID, the good luck getting an appointment with anybody. They were like, "What do I need you for? I can sell my property 10 times over." They didn't really need much help in their mind, where now they're kind of like, "What's going on? What's happening? What are the cap rates? How's the market?" So they're a little more receptive to communicating with us. So look at the positive side of that.
Michael, thank you for sharing. Keeping the best for last. Blair's been around a long, long time. And if you don't know what SIOR means badass, right? Because Blair, if you don't mind sharing your long, illustrious career, in production and leadership, just all your evolution, but really what SIOR means, because I know we will talk about trade groups and plugging in. If you don't mind just sharing your background a little of what SIOR is also.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. I've been in commercial real estate for over 40 years. And if there's one truth I've learned, it's this: no one gets to the top alone. Every successful broker I know, including myself, got there by leaning on strong mentors, joining the right organizations, and quite frankly, staying curious. And you mentioned SIOR. For me, joining SIOR was a game changer. It instantly set me apart. It gave me access to high-level professionals all around the world and helped me land deals I wouldn't have touched otherwise. is not just a designation. It's a community of people who, quite frankly, raise your standards to the highest levels. And that's great, but just as important, obviously, is choosing the right brokerage platform. As all of us here are with eXp Commercial, which of course gives us the flexibility, technology, and the national reach to do business anywhere. It also allows us to collaborate with other forward-thinking brokers in real time. I also stay involved with going global progressive networks like Renaissance Global, which are pushing the boundaries of how we connect and share opportunities and drive innovation across borders. And Jim, over the years, I've coached and trained hundreds of agents, and I've seen incredible transformations. Some came in brand new, others were floundering after a few tough years, but with the right guidance and mindset, they turned it around. And if you're serious about making commercial real estate work for you, I can tell you this, don't try and figure it out alone. That's not the way to do it.
Blair, thank you so much. And I know you just really glossed over it because I know you ran the KW over there for a while for commercial SOR, to get it. It's 3 years running. I think back in the day it was 350 or 400,000 you had to make every year. So it is the elite of the elite. We know we have a lot of CCIMs here too. A lot of them are SIR, CCIMs, and many groups. So a lot of times it's true. You don't get there alone. And I think that is one of the biggest things that differentiates commercial from residential. A lot of times, yes, you work in teams, but commercial, very strategic. We work with each other. We know pretty much our competitors in our market, right? We become experts, at least in primary markets. We know our market like the back of our hand, what rate, what rental rates, square footage, what's being built. That's being an expert of your market, but it doesn't happen overnight. And it does have, you do need to practice making the calls, engaging them, because this is the big difference that, like Rich mentioned, now we have so much technology out there. We could just look at things, find things. We didn't have that when we first started. So let's start kind of going back when we first started. So Blair, I'll ask you again. When you first started, do you even have half the stuff that we have now?
I had an old wooden desk with a dial telephone, a real Rolodex, and most people have no clue what that even means, and a notepad and a pencil, and that was it. You built your own book of people, and no, it's I can't imagine doing that again. No, there's just no way.
So when you see that, right, the actual flip Rolodex that you have a bunch of names and numbers and a pencil, really just to write down contacts and keep it right. There wasn't any CRM or tracking. And Richie, I'll go with you. Remember when we started at Marcus, I don't even think we really had it. I think we had ACT, but a lot of us, we used the Excel spreadsheet and we were just creating everything on our own. But if you don't mind kind of sharing back of what you saw, maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Well, so Jim, I recently, I'm part of RealNext as my CRM, and I started with RealNext when it was REA 2.0 back in the 90s. And so it's obviously emerged and has changed so dramatically since. But I think one of the things that I wanted to make mention of is, we started in the industry just as the internet was born. And the internet really changed the world in terms of commercial real estate. Prior to that, commercial real estate was essentially like residential in respect to the fact that it was pretty much local. But once the internet happened, the world shrunk. And you can look at, and just as an example, and Jim knows I've been in the multifamily space my entire career, but just take the cities of Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Dallas, and just the multifamily space alone, 34% of the owners of multifamily real estate in those three cities are all California-based buyers. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars of real estate now that's being transacted across state lines. And that's been one of the most massive changes that I've seen in the last 30 years between that and the fact that syndications have increased dramatically. And syndicators, by the way, don't make money unless they transact. And the reason why there hasn't been the big transactions is because we did have, of course, the 11 consecutive interest rate hikes. And those IRRs that the syndicators promised, they weren't able to hit, and they still can't hit them. And so that's why they're holding back from selling right now, even though you've got 83% of commercial real estate investors are in acquisitions modes right now. There's tons of money out there on the sidelines looking for deals, but they're not going to overpay. They're not going to go to those lower cap rates right now. They're going to make sure that there's a readjustment period. Of course, we've got a lot going on in the world right now, a lot going on in Washington, D.C., a lot of changes in fiscal policy that's impacting interest rates, which are still the driving force of our industry. So hopefully we get things to settle down a little bit here in the next couple of months over the summer, and we get to those interest rates now can start to get lowered, and we feel have that confidence level. And I think you'll really begin to see more and more transactions. But just so people understand, we talk about it being easier for us back then. In 2023 and 2024, according to CoStar, it was the slowest transactional period since the 08-09 recession. That's a reality. That's not people saying, "Oh, the markets are slow." That's a reality of it. But with any luck, hopefully those things will turn around. But all the more reason to do exactly what we've all talked about. I mean, the four of us here have over 200 years of commercial experience. Of course, Blair's got 180 of those, but we're all of the same philosophy. No matter how tough it is, that's when you have to be even more going back to the fundamentals. The more phone calls you have to make, the more appointments you've got to get. That's really when you have to dig down hard and even work harder to get those relationships going, plant those seeds, because they will come to fruition.
Rich, I'm glad you brought that up with all Blair's experience. So we could say this, my partner and I, when we first started at Marcus, we did 0 deals, but our partners did all of it. But it's our partner and I. So, you got to leverage it. But that's why a mentor is so important, because you're leveraging their resume when you really have none. Why is somebody going to give you a multi-million-dollar? Well, now it's all multi-million dollars. Back then, right? 30 years ago, yeah, it could be under $1 million, pretty good deal. But now they're all in the $1 million in the LA area. So it is interesting, when you say that, but how do you leverage and use a team? But Michael, you've trained thousands and thousands with the NCREA, a organization that you founded, created. What are you seeing now when you're coaching and getting in front of, let's say, new agents? They hear about commercial real estate. They hear about the large dollars. They get hungry. They're like, wow, I love it. So what do you tell them, kind of in a nutshell, of what to expect in commercial real estate in 2025?
Yeah, well, lots of things are different now as we keep talking about. One of the things that I'm definitely noticing is the diversity. We started off by talking about how it's always been white, white, blue-haired, older men, and now I look around the rooms and I see a lot of diversity. I see women, I see a lot of different nationalities. So I think that's a huge change that is occurring in our industry, and that's a good thing, right? And I see that that's one thing. And the other thing is just showing up. People are just, ever since COVID, my gosh, they went and, started watching Netflix reruns and started getting unemployment insurance and, those checks that we were getting. People got lazy and they got scared. And when people get scared, what do? They hide in a lot of cases. Only a certain percentage of people are going to come out when they're scared. Some people fight, some people hide, most people hide. And so I think that what's happened is most people are still kind of just timid and passive and not showing up. I see it over and over again with people who say they're going to do stuff, but they just don't do it. They don't show up. And so just showing up is half the battle right now. You guys just get up and go to work. Just do the work. Yeah, it might be hard, yes, but what are our options? Our options are some of these jobs that are out there are, what, you're going to go get $100,000 a year salary job working for somebody else, doing some kind of grind work. I mean, this is a beautiful industry where we can make a ton of money just doing some minor little things that may be a little uncomfortable. Just do the work and show up. Uh, just show up, be the person that's lead generating and having the conversations. That is just critical. I can go on and on about lead gen, but I wanted to mention about networking and what Blair had said, the importance of that. is just cannot be overstated. The other thing that COVID did is it kind of forced people to go back into their own offices, their own houses, work from homes by themselves, things like that. That's dangerous. You know, you got to get together and network. Um, you have to do that. I don't think you can make it in the industry, especially if you're newer, without collaborating and networking. I just don't think you can even make it, guys. I think you've got to get together with people because it's just too challenging. It's hard, right? When there's times when it's not going well, we're not getting any appointments and things like that. We don't feel like doing it. We need somebody to tap us on the shoulder and say, come on, you got this. You know, you can do this. I need somebody else. I want to hear somebody else talk about, man, that was hard. And it's, oh, good. It's not just me, right? I need that. So we all need that. So networking is just absolutely critical. And I know everyone's a huge fan on his panel of networking. You guys, when I came to North Carolina, I didn't know anybody other than Leah Parker, who's been a great contact for me. She's the broker at EXP for North and South Carolina. But besides that, I just had friends that were here. I didn't have any business acquaintances. So the first thing I did was I started going to these meetings. And it's uncomfortable because I don't know anybody. Yeah, but it doesn't take long. People are nice, people are friendly, and you know, you've got some experience, especially so you can speak the language. And now I've got contacts, and I had a guy contact me last week that's got 15 acres of redevelopment opportunity. I have the perfect guy for him. So we were on a Zoom yesterday. We're talking, everyone's shaking their head. This looks good. This looks good. It's an off-market deal. I mean, this, I don't know if it's going to go together or not. You guys know how that stuff goes, but that could be a huge deal right out of the gates for me here. And I got it all from nothing more than networking. The guy I met, also the buyer, was at the Philadelphia event, Blair. That's where I met him. So these connections all came from me just networking and getting off my butt and meeting people. And that is the key to this. So I think you've got to network, number one, and get out there and show up. And number two, you have to lead generate every day. You've got to do it. If you don't do those things, then you're at risk. And then the last thing I'll say about this real quick is when we're lead generating, Richie is the master at lead generation. And he's the mastery at scripts and having conversations and overcoming objections. So if you're not role playing, practicing those scripts, realizing what to, thinking about what you're going to say when objections hit you, what are you thinking? Because each one of these calls, each one of these conversations, these potential, I like to call them at bats. What's it worth? You know, what's a deal worth to you right now? 50,000, 100,000, you know, more, you know, it's not a small number. So you should be the very best that you can be, possibly. Every time you're talking to somebody, you need to be on your game like an NFL athlete.
You know, Michael, and it's great that you said, we always say the best people we train. I stopped actually training, but even the questions I asked, are you afraid of cold calling? No, I'd rather just network. You got to do all of those things. And then eventually I figured it out. It was the military, it was the athletes, it was the entrepreneur that made it in our business. A lot of times when I saw the law degree, the MBA, something high, they wanted other people to get dirty, right? Get in the weeds, do the calls. Oh yeah, just give me the leads once I get it and I'll close it for you. Well, that's the easy part. The hard part is finding the prospect, maintaining the prospect. And Richie has it that, you know, and all of us had the experience. We didn't get that client until very, very late, but we stayed consistent and on it. And Blair, you know, just saying where Michael, by showing up to your event was fantastic, what you put together. And I remember people didn't show up, people didn't engage. So if you don't mind sharing about, you know, really showing up, because that's like SIOR, the more you go to these events, the more you collaborate, you build friendships, so they want to send leads. But really, how important is mentorship? And what was your mentor like? And why should you get kind of the mentor? So if you could talk about showing up to events and then really your mentorship and why mentorship is so important.
Absolutely. And I didn't cover SIOR as I should have. And if you'll bear with me, I'd like to backtrack just a little bit. SIOR has been around a number of years. It stands for the Society of Industrial and Office Realtors. It was actually born here in Philadelphia. A broker who became a very good friend of mine and an attorney who is a real good friend of mine actually started SIOR way back when. And that connection has just been invaluable. There are only just a little over 4,000 of us in the entire world. But I can pick up the phone or send an email to somebody in London or India or you name it. And it's like they're my old time friend and they've been forever, and it just works great. And with the relationships, I think all too often people ignore the fact that one of the greatest contacts that you can make is your fellow brokers. And I know so many people that go, they just don't want to talk to quote unquote the competitor. Last week I was on the phone and actually was looking for a contact into the co-working world. I called a broker that I've known for, good Lord, 30 years. And one thing led to another. The next thing I know, Al Margolis is his name. Al said to me, he says, hang on, I know Larry, let me get him on the phone and we'll do a conference call. And just like that, a broker that is a competitor, although he's an SIOR, picked up the phone, called the guy with IWG, which is is the largest co-working group in the world, made the introduction to me. All of a sudden, I'm being introduced to somebody I could not have got to any other way, just no way in the world. And as a result, it looks like we're going to do I hate the word deal. We're going to do a transaction with IWG here in Philadelphia that's going to be well in excess of $3 million. And it's all because of the broker to broker relationship. And I just want to keep hammering on that because it's so important. And quite frankly, that's one of the beauties of EXP Commercial, because I now can pick up the phone and talk to brokers all across the United States. Rich and I have become very close colleagues, and we're both brokers. And I'll shut up, but it's just so important to do that.
Blair, I'm
Yeah.
glad you shared that, because everyone says, how do I know everyone in the industry? Because everyone knows I was part, right, of all these different trade groups with SIR. I've known many of the presidents. CCIM, I've known many of the presidents. ICSC, I've been there when it was diversity under the REAP program. So if you pay your dues and you volunteer and you'll speak and help and contribute, Richie knows we used to do things for CCIM, deal exchanges in our downtown LA office. We sponsored a ton of event in LA. That's how I knew pretty much every single trade group, from crew, commercial real estate women. And Michael, I'm glad you said diversity, because I always say women should do more of this. I don't see as many women on the screen, but women that make it in this industry kicks the guy's ass. Right. I'm just telling you, they become so good because they can get in the door and they can stay in the room and they are badass. And I know in SIOR and CCIM, a lot of women leadership. So I do encourage that more women to show up, to learn this business, because you have the edge. As long as you can take kind of the rejection, boy, you're going to be unstoppable. So, it is networking, plugging into these different groups, showing up. But I'll just tell you this, the price of admission, and I'll go back to Richard later on this. At Marcus, they wouldn't talk to you for 6 months until they saw that you were committed to this craft. They would not talk to you. They would ignore you. And you had to be super aggressive to show you wanted to be in this business. And really, by making the calls, setting up the meetings, and hopefully you got a listing to present at the Monday morning meetings. Otherwise, they could care less about you, right? Because you weren't serious. So it is important that all of this other stuff is built on showing your colleagues that you were serious about this industry. And once you showed that you were serious and focused and dedicated to whatever degree, right? Like Michael did 100 deals a year plus and just kept on doing it. Everyone knew who he was. So whatever you did, they have to know you're serious, you're professional, you're dedicated. Then when you start networking, they don't feel ashamed to connect you to somebody, refer you to somebody, because you're not going to let them down. And that's what's important. So a lot of this stuff is back to the basics of engaging, making the calls, getting to know people, and then growing from there. That's why we always say commercial agents all know each other, because as you stay in the business longer and longer, we're all friends. Believe it or not, we're all friends. We all know the good ones from the bad ones, and we can pick up the phones nowadays with LinkedIn. There is no reason you can't reach out, call anyone everywhere, especially once you built your reputation. So it's really exciting. So let's go now on doing deals. Richie, it's so hard. I know you're doing deal exchange. You've done it for us at CCIM. You did it at Sperry. You did it, just over and over at BRC. We used to do it too. So if you don't mind sharing a little deal exchange and broker forums and why all these things are so important to share deals with each other, not only on market, but really off market needs and wants, right? Why is that so important?
Well, it actually ties into the points we're just talking about. I mean, first of all, no one broker is going to have all the deals. So, and I'm also a big believer in karma. When you start to have to create a relationship and you have a reputation of sharing deals and actually being in favor of your client's best needs. So if another broker brings a deal or brings a buyer to your deal, and it's best for your client, then you go with that. And I can tell you over my career, I've double-ended probably half my deals. But a lot of that was in the early 2000s. If you got a listing, you had 6 offers and 3 of them were your own buyers. So you practically couldn't help but double end these deals. But the rest of the time, I collaborated with brokers constantly and still do to this day. They're a critical juncture to help getting deals done because they have deals that I don't. They have relationships that I don't. And so if you have that collaboration, and like I said, I'm a big believer in karma. What comes around goes around. If you work with brokers, they're going to work with you. And so that's why it's so important to do that. The relationships, it's still a relationship business, bottom line. And one thing I want to make a point to give some of the younger folks some good news out there is, look, the baby boomer generation, of which Blair and I are a part of, I don't think Jim and Michael are, but we're part of that baby boomer generation. We are the largest wealth holders of commercial real estate by far. Well, the older ones are now in their late 70s, turning into their 80s, and there's going to be, over the next 5 years, one of the biggest generational wealth transformations we're ever going to see in our history. You're going to see a lot of second generation folks take control of the wealth that the baby boomers have built, which means new people, new relationships. And to Michael's point about our industry chain being more diverse, well, so has the investment community. You're seeing a lot more of people of color in the investment side of things. So that diversity goes all over the place. And so you have an opportunity as a young person here to start all over. I may have had, and Blair has, relationships for over 30 years, but they're not going to mean much when they're sitting out there sipping Mai Tais on the beach, right? And they're retired. The new relationships, we're going to have to start from scratch and create it with that second generation and do the same things that we did back in the day to create those relationships. So we've got a great opportunity if you are a young person in here, but the same fundamentals, we keep going back to that, all apply. It's creating those relationships, establishing them, working them, showing up, meeting brokers, meeting clients, as many people as you can possibly meet. That used to be the driving force at Marcus, Jim, right? Just get a meeting. Didn't matter for what. As you get older, more established in your career, then you can be more discerning in terms of which meetings you take. But it's still all about creating relationships. And I got to tell you, as an old dog, and I think Blair will agree with me on this one, there's nothing more fun than when you find a new client or a new relationship or a young broker that you connect with. I've got a young man out in Chicago with EXP. And I love him. I want to adopt him. He's the same age as my daughter. I just want to adopt him. He's such a great kid, and he's such good fundamentals. And we have had numerous conversations, and we've chased a couple of deals together. That's fun. That's when you really enjoy this business.
Richie,
Jim,
go ahead, Blair.
if I wanted to just kind of backtrack on something Michael said, because to me, it's extremely important. The diversity of the brokerage community, a lot of people are overlooking it. I'm building a team. I haven't built a team in ages. And the first individual that I brought on my team was a lady, and she is just, I don't remember the last time I saw anybody that had as much fire as she does and is committed. And I've come to the conclusion that part of that is the mindset of the the women are, they don't think I can do it because I'm a woman and I'll be damned. I'm going to show them and I'm going to drive it down their throats. And I'm in the process of adding my second team member. And guess what? It's another woman. And to overlook those folks is disastrous. They, as Michael said, they open doors that nobody else can open.
Blair, I'm glad you shared that, because most of the people I dealt with were women that owned the real estate. The guys didn't run their portfolios. I dealt with the women and they ran all the real estate. They detail oriented, managed it, was great at acquiring. I learned a lot of tips and tricks as a principal, when I was a principal, from a lot of these women that ran the portfolio. The men kind of did their job. The women found the investments. They bought, first a duplex, a fourplex, and they parlayed it. So while their husbands were doing their job, while the wives were running their families, they went into real estate. They started acquiring because they had some time, in between, sometimes the kids, and then they made it full time. So much so that they retired their husbands after 10, 20 years. Boy, they have massive portfolios. And I was just helping them, acquire, buy, sell, trade. And I was like, this is great. But you know what? You never know how you do it, but never discount yourself. If you have a fire of trying to do this industry, you can do it, right? Just find the right platform, the education, the right mentor that's open-minded, that wants to help you do this, the right networks. Now that a lot of these networks are more open to let everyone in, they're not so much, they were closed before. They're really great now. So as you join and start building those relationships, it's powerful. And going on tech, Rich, I kind of want to cover, I think one of the biggest things that the residential brokers don't understand, it's not like the MLS. Everything's not listed. Everything doesn't have to be shown. A lot of times commercial deals are pocket, they're private, they're secret, they're traded like cards. So they're very overwhelmed to say, how come I don't see all these deals? How come I don't know where to go? Oh, and the worst is, this pisses off all commercial brokers. Show me some deals. Show me what you got. That's the job. That's the difference between the residential. Here's an MLS. Everyone's forced to put it in. Commercial, if you don't build relationships, CB, JLL, Marcus, Independents, friends of different ones, different trade groups, you can pick up the phone and say, hey, what kind of deals you got? I got this, you got that. And this is why the deal exchange, that's how commercial deals are done. They're not, unless you double end them, right? Know your market, have a strong database, know it like the back of your hand. There is no list. And that drives me crazy. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, just a quick story on that. Sticking with that networking theme, I was on a coaching call yesterday, and one of my students said, hey, I got this licensed agent, and so I didn't think I should keep calling him anymore. And so I told them this story, and the story was, when I first started in commercial real estate and I was making my calls, I called a guy, I won't say who it is, but he's a huge developer builder in Long Beach. Yeah, I didn't know, and I called and I got his assistant, his team, basically, and they kept saying no, 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 like most do. And then one time they shared with me, well, we're licensed, Michael, you keep calling. So I said, hey, look, I know a lot of stuff is done off market, so if you don't mind, I'd love to keep in touch with you guys and maybe have a deal or two that you can share. Sure enough, one of my calls, he said, you keep calling, so I'm going to shoot you something. And he shot me a deal that was off market. It was one of Kurt's portfolio, and I sold it. I took it, got an offer on it, and we closed. It was a smooth deal, thank goodness. So the guy said, you did a great job on that one. Here's another one. And he kept feeding me, and he became a huge source of inventory of off-market deals, and it was a licensed broker, right? And so you just never know, right? We never know. So that's back to that collaboration and networking that is just so critical, and it ties into what you were just saying there, Jim, about off-market deals and things like that.
Thanks for sharing that, Michael. And it is this from the education, you got to learn it. You got to learn the jargon, the vocabulary, because most of us in commercial, if you don't use the right terms, acronyms, we just know, right? We just know, okay, you're new, and there's nothing wrong with that. But admit that you're new, you really don't know. Don't say, and it's not always transferable. I've been in the residential 30 years, just like I don't know how to sell a house. I wouldn't say I could do what you do. But if you're in real estate, don't think you can just do it, because even in commercial, there's different product specialties, right? From multifamily, retail, office, industrial, there's leasing, there's land development, and even parts of commercial is property management, appraisal, valuation, capital markets and finance, right? There are so many parts, but as you get into this business, by getting the good education, I say NCREA, one of the best, teaching so many thousands of agents, and that's why we had it, to learn that too, right? Getting that mentor, right, Blair? Learning, finding that right fit, because Richie, you and I know you had a great mentor with Ridgeway, right? Gave you a deal to work, right? And finding the right mentor, and I would say interviewing a couple people, and then joining these different groups, networking groups that fit into your product specialty. And I would even say sometimes you don't want to be in the same room with all of your same people, because you want a referral source. Sometimes, as everyone knows now, and I would see some of the PDF guys are here, Paul Frank is awesome. He's the coach, right? And the coach shows up to residential getting referrals. So you do need to stay with other experts within your industry, but also get out of your silo, joining and going into the residential or maybe multifamily that fits with retail, right? A lot of times they're mixed use, they fit very well. So network with what you're really good at, build that craft, but also find a networking source that you can be that experts to somebody very different. So it is important for that. I want to open it to the audience. If you have any questions, ideas, comments, experience to share, this is a good time for everyone to do it. Otherwise, we'll kind of just continue to get more experience out of our experts here on this panel. So any questions for everyone? Hey, Max, I see your CCIM. Maybe you could share some, because I always say it's the gray hair, no hair, or dyed hair now. Go ahead, Max.
76 years and still going. And CCIM is something that, I'm going to share with a lot of guys that are new to the business, is the fact that, we need to, as you all said, you need to get the experience to communicate with the seasoned agents. A lot of us, in the beginning when we started, we did not have the vocabulary to be able to communicate with some of these commercial agents. As a result, we always got that, backhand, that, I don't want to talk to you. You are going to waste my time. And based on the experience that they have had in the past, that's how they do it. And that's, you guys are providing a great service, to all the people that are there and giving us all that knowledge that we need, and the education that we can use to help us get ahead of the rest of the people that are with different companies, and they do not have this guidance that we have in here. And that's what happened. I used to go into all of the, before I became a commercial agent, I used to go to all the CCIM, IRM, Appraisal Institute. As a matter of fact, I've gone to so many appraisal institutes that I was asked if I wanted to get my license, because I had so many courses. And as a result, I became a little bit seasoned in the way to communicate with the other commercial agent. And little by little, they are accepted me, and we're working together with a lot of them. And that's what it's going to take. I was lucky when I went, you guys talk about M&M, when I joined them, they put me as an advisor, and instead of just a affiliate, if you will, that most of the guys they do. And then they started me with a higher brokerage fee that I would receive. The split was in favor of me than the other guys that started. It's a lot of hard work that it needs to be done, and all the hard work that we do is going to pay off, especially when you're talking about, the Rolodex, or, your database that you need. And one thing that I learned is you got to have a list of items or properties that you can present to people that are the buyers. And the same thing, you got to have a list of sellers that are willing to sell and they have property to sell in order for you to kind of put the two together to create a transaction. Basically, you have to have your real estate list and your clients list and be able to match the buyer with the seller with the particular property that you have to have. And that takes a little bit of work on our side. And that is something that I learned from the beginning. I remember reading a book a long time ago, and that's what in the beginning told me, that's what you need. You just cannot go in and say you want to buy something and you don't have anything to offer. Or you have somebody, you knock at somebody's door and say you want to sell, but you don't have a buyer for them, or property for them. So you need to be having all those things at hand before you start knocking at doors.
Matt, if you don't mind putting your contact information, since you are a director, a longtime CCIM, for people that are interested, because many people do join CCIM as the first conduit into all the real estate associations. So if you don't mind sharing that. Masters, you have a question, please.
Yeah, it's more of a comment. I was listening to the feedback from the panelists, and reference to networking and just getting out there. So even like someone like myself, I joined a commercial investment division of realtors in Charleston. So that's all commercial. Now, they know I'm residential, but I have transacted with some, with members of that, association and have closed deals. So they know that, I do have, commercial experience, but it goes back to what you were saying with relationships. I do show up, to all the luncheons, the best as I can, because now they're getting to know me more and they're starting to feel like, and they're starting to see that I'm one of them now. So I just wanted to share that feedback. But I'm also part of also a member of the ULI, so Urban Land Institute, and I like that organization as well, because I'm not around all realtors like you said. It's now I'm around more professional developers, so I'm looking to create opportunities that way as well. So I just wanted to share that.
Master, thank you for sharing. ULI is a great research, education, and a lot of people that are in college or are getting a graduate degree is a great place. So thank you for sharing ULI. It's a great organization. Many people here, right? We use ULI. We've got the research, especially, you're right, developers. So if you're interested, please, Master, reach out, put up the ULI information for people. April, let's get a woman up here. I know you're the doer. Go ahead, April.
Hey, Jim, and hello, team. So I wanted to just add on to what Blair had mentioned about the broker-to-broker relationships, and then also Michael regarding the networking piece. And I think you also mentioned, Jim, if it weren't you, it was Rich, who mentioned the importance of volunteering and organizations. And so just wanted to share a real-time result of something that I'm experiencing right now as a result of all three. So first of all, when you do engage with the other brokers and you do sign up for the different organizations, you want to go in with the mindset of how can I add value? Not what can I get, but how can I add value? And as a result of me doing that, I've been asked by one of the trainers of a large Keller Williams brokerage firm here in the Metro Atlanta area to speak before about 50 agents. They're going to give me a 20-minute time set to be able to talk to them about the importance of using a business broker when they are transacting or handling a deal where there is real estate that's income producing, so that they can stay out of trouble. And because I showed up doing all three of those things, I've gotten that opportunity. It's actually going to take place in September, and who knows what's going to become of that. But that's going to give me an opportunity to look for referral business from the 50 agents that'll be in the room. And then also moving on to CCIM, changing the topic. A lot of people think that you have to join the national CCIM to get involved, but you can actually find out about what's going on with your local chapter. And if you find that it's too expensive to join the national level, you can still join your local chapter and take advantage of the different networking events that take place in your local area. So thank you, Jim,
Thank-
for the opportunity to
Thank
speak.
you, April. Well, we have a CCIM officer leader, Ellen Sue, who's from Canada that joined our call. So Ellen, share CCIM before Scott, I pick on you to talk about IREM because that's another important association. Ellen?
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. I just want to say hi to everybody and thank you, Jim, for the opportunity to speak. One important thing is that CCM offers education, also offers networking, and also offers technology. So we do offer site to do business, which a lot of brokers can use and actually get into a lot of the data that you don't need to pay a lot of money to get access to using to produce brochures and also do CRM. So that is something to look into. For me, my experience has been just be there, be and participate. Like April said, if you have an opportunity to volunteer, do so because you never know what comes out of it. So when I start out CCIM, I'm actually part of a residential and also boutique commercial brokerage. And then because going through being participate as a leader, joining committees and talking to various different mentors throughout the CCIM committees, I learned that to be able to participate on the national level and leadership level, it made me realize that I can be a leader, I can start my own business, I can be an entrepreneur. And that's how I started. I started my own business in various different brokerage, like a boutique brokerage and also asset management, property management company. This is all because I participated on all the committees and talked to all the people who are more experienced than me, like looking at Blair, talking to Michael and talking to Rich. Like these are all people that gave valuable advice that allow me to understand I'm not by myself. I can always reach out to any of the people on this call if I have any questions, any deals that we have opportunities on. There's an opportunity. That's the reason why I'm so happy to have, this call on this. So if you guys are interested, be there, be present. That's really the key things. Thank you.
Ellen,
Thank you,
thank you for long time service at different committees I know you've run. So if you don't mind, put your information and Blair for SIOR, for CCIM to reach out. I know Keith Andrews got to give you a shout out to Keith at CCIM. But Scott Cook, I know this is not talked about. IREM, Institute of Real Estate Management. No one really cares, but it's so important. Scott, if you don't mind sharing IREM with everyone.
Yeah, I care. I care a lot. So yeah, IREM is the Institute of Real Estate Management, and we actually partner with CCIM a lot. In fact, if you get your CPM, you can fast track to your CCIM, and they do joint events a lot of times, especially locally and such. So IREM is really the pinnacle of the property management, asset management world. So if you want to learn and get designations that are global designations for property management, asset management, that's where you go. I mean, I started out doing the basic 101 leasing course. And then, like Ellen and everybody else has said, I kind of worked my way in. I started joining different committees. You join membership, you join golf, which is fun. There's a whole bunch of different fun committees you can join. It is a lot of fun. You get to meet other peers and it's also a great way to advance in your career if you're in asset management because you get to learn about other companies and people that can bring you along and stuff like that. So you kind of elevate. It's all the education, it's all the resources, it's all the committees, all the fun. Like everyone else has said, you get in there and you participate, but it's other asset management property managers. And then, like I said, we mingle with, BOMA and CCIM and Land Institute. Property management is amazing because it crosses over every type of real estate industry. You know, back in the day, I think it's getting better. Back in the day, we were considered kind of the lowest form. You know, if you're a property manager, you know, you drove the old beater car, and you know the brokers would pull up in their Mercedes, and you know you kind of felt like, you know, second class. But now, you know, it's actually a very very good paying profession. And I tell you, being starting out my career in property management and then going into brokerage, I can evaluate a property from a whole other angle than just give me a pro forma, a broker pro forma. I get a broker pro forma and I go through it, and it ends up being a lot different, right? I mean, come on, we all know, you know, brokers are there to sell that property. Property managers are there to operate the property. So anyway, I won't go into a whole diatribe, but IREM is great. If you love property management, it's where all your education is going to live. And then it crosses over with all the others. CCIM is fabulous, and so are all the others. So do as much as you can. Same thing that April said, join your local chapter. You know, if you just want to get involved and see what it's like, join golf. Can't be a golf committee. I mean, come on, you know.
Great. Scott, share if anyone's interested in property management. So there's a lot more, like I said, than commercial brokerage, and you can see the renaissance that many of us, since we've all been friends with each other for, I'd say, decades, many of us are creating a global network that goes about all the different industries, companies, businesses. We really formed it as friends, people we've done business with. I would say the longest I've done is like 30 something years I've known. And because there's all mentors and friends, we can verify everyone. So we are creating this network to help everyone plug in and grow, right? Faster, better, from everything we see, from leadership to winning deals, so people can see, from technology, from all the technology around the world. Many of us own, buy, control different tech platforms, to different committees and leadership groups. And we're open, right, to everyone and anyone that's interested to being a part of this, so we can network, help each other do more deals. So you see a lot more. So let's end this by kind of sharing last minute tips. Blair, we'll start with you. Kind of any final words for any new agents, what you would do over again if you had the chance.
Wow, tall order. I was very lucky. I got into real estate by taking a class at the University of Maryland, taught by one of the greatest brokers in the Washington, D.C. marketplace. And he became my mentor, and I wouldn't have succeeded without that individual. And I go back to where I started this entire statement today. You don't get there by yourself. There's just no way in the world. You need to find somebody you're compatible with, that is experienced, is successful. Grow with them, let them teach you and bring you along. That's what it's all about. If you try and be a lone ranger out there, it isn't going to work, folks. It's just, I'm sorry, it just is not going to work. So there's a number of us that are mentors and coaches that we love to help people. I mean, I get a bigger kick out of that than I do doing deals sometimes.
Thanks, but we'll jump to Clayton. I didn't see Clayton's hands, but Clayton, if you don't mind saying something, if we go a little over, we'll go a little over. Clayton, you have a question?
Yeah, I'll be very quickly. I'm a newer agent, but thank you all for having me. And I just wanted to follow the theme of this call, and to your point, Mr. Blair, about collaboration, and just putting myself out there in terms of motivating myself. And I am currently working with a group that owns 3 gas stations. So they're actively looking to expand here in the Atlanta area. So if anyone knows of any properties that may fit into these parameters, come across anything that might fit, I would love to connect with you. And this can be off market or not, but I just wanted to share that information. And again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Clayton. Connect with Rich Enderlin, Deal Exchange. Rich, here's another product, because gas stations are businesses that have the land. So Richie, reach out to Clayton. Michael, any final words, and then we'll end with
Yeah.
Rich.
Yeah, absolutely, you guys. Hey, thanks for coming. What a great event. Good job, Jim, and everybody who puts these together. Just in closing for me, have a schedule, right? Be disciplined, be focused, know what you're going to say, know your market that you're in, know it up and down, forwards and backwards, right? Those things are critical. Have a schedule, lead generate, be a master of your skill, right? And you'll be fine. You could go crush it if you just took that and just implemented what I just said. Uh, Network. I think that a lot of people have talked about networking. We don't always talk about networking to those residential agents like we should. That's a great way to do that. I've done that over and over again and had a lot of success. You know, that KW model was to put their commercial division smack inside the middle of the residential division, not upstairs where you're elite, right? It's right smack in the middle because they wanted those commercial agents getting those referrals from those residential agents. So I actually marketed thousands of postcards to residential agents to get their referrals. It's a great resource, great way to do that. But I think what I would do differently if I could go back and start it all over again, it would be buy and hold and don't over leverage. Over leveraging killed me in 2008. I was way over leveraged and it just smacked me upside the head and set me back probably 10 years. Um, so buy and hold, right? I mean, I was so caught up in being number one. I was doing those deals and I was like, I gotta get this award. You know, then I'm packing everything up in California. Those are nice big awards. What did I do with them, you guys? I trashed them. What am I gonna do with that stuff? You know, it's worthless. Give me the give me the wealth. You know, buy and hold, that would be the big thing that I would have done differently was I had some opportunities and I was so concerned with double lending and things like that. So those would be my closing thoughts. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Michael. And ending with Rich Enderlin, my longtime partner and friend, and how we cut our teeth at Marcus. Go ahead, Richie.
Jimmy, for the new agents, I'll share one quick story. My very first year in the business, you were sitting right next to me at the time. We were taught that when a deal sold, you go into your database and you make the changes, right? Put the new ownership in. And I would always look to see, well, who sold that property? And I'll never forget this. I went into my database and there it was, an LLC. No name, no phone number, no anything. I didn't have it. Somebody had found that LLC. Somebody found out who the owner was. Somebody found out their phone number, called them, got a meeting, got the listing, sold the deal, and got a paycheck, and I didn't. And I swore from that day forward, I would never lose a deal because I didn't know who all the players were in my area. So the database is critical. It's how you do lead gen. It's how you find the people to create these relationships with. And so again, with the technology today, there's no excuse not to have all that information. And I strongly encourage you, pick your area, pick your asset class, build that database, and do all the things that we talked about and have been doing for the last 30 years. We practice what we preach. That's the one thing I can say about all four of us. We still do it to this day. We still lead gen. We still bang the phones. We still work on our databases, and we still try to create those relationships. So best of luck to all of you. I think good times are in front of us. They really are. I think things are really going to open up. Great time to be optimistic and to be in this industry. I'm just glad I'm not 137 years old like somebody else on this call, but it's a great time to be in the industry. Keep your head up. It's going to happen. Just stick with it, and good things are going to come, Jim. Thanks.
Richie, thank you. Everyone, Blair, Michael, Rich, thanks so much for being a guest on Top Agent Nation Commercial Wednesdays. Always network, make it a great day, connect with everyone. Looking forward to seeing this group thrive and grow every Wednesday. Let's do this. Let's start building a community together. Everyone have a great day and a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye.